Welcome back to Inside the Kentucky Derby, where, I think we finally got some questions answered this past weekend. Kevin Kirstein, Darren Rogers here with you again on Inside the Kentucky Derby. And before we get going with our answers to those questions, of course, we want to thank our friends over at Woodford Reserve who helped make this podcast possible. Woodford Reserve, of course, with more than 200 flavor notes in every sip. Woodford is a spectacle for the senses. Please enjoy responsibly. Darren, I think our biggest question got answered this weekend in South Florida, where the return of champion Forte was dazzling, and he stamped himself as the favorite on the road to the Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, what a nice 3-year-old debut. Todd Pletcher couldn't ask for anything more. Very professional. Clearly the horse to beat on the road to the Derby, although I'll be contrarian. Somebody has to be, right?
I was going to save this for the last. Go ahead, be contrarian. I like this.
Well, no, it's just we have to remember he's dynamic at 1 1/16. That's what we do know. That's the answer. Will he continue to progress, be as dynamic at 1 1/8, let alone 1 1/4? But that's the only knock I have, by the way. The only knock. And it's not really a knock. It's more of, let's just keep our feet on the ground. Don't get too excited just yet. But Forte is the horse to beat. He's the champion. Came back, made headlines and looked spectacular. And then I think out west, Arabian Night is just as fast, and the others are catching up. The others are progressing along the way, but what a nice victory in the Fountain of Youth for Forte.
Here is a stretch call for Forte in that Fountain of Youth.
Mages 3 wide, but a big presence 4 wide in the form of Forte. 4 across the course as they straighten for home. Out in the center, Forte tries to overhaul Cyclone Mischief, who's very game, but Forte's very good. As a 3-year-old, he debuts with an easy victory in the Fountain of Youth Stakes. Here's your 2-year-old champion. Here's Forte, geared down. Rocket Can second, Cyclone Mischief third, Mage Ranwelling was fourth, Shadow Dragon to complete your high five in 143 flat. He's back.
I love that under the call from Pete Aiello. He is back, and that was a fun race. That was good to see him come back. And Rocket Can, Cyclone Mischief. I think out of the second and third place finishers, I was glad to see Cyclone Mischief sort of ran to who we saw him in that allowance race a couple starts back, and he just adds some flavor whenever Dale Romans is on the road to the Derby. So I think he takes a step forward and likely to the Florida Derby next for him and Rocket Can. And so it's, I think a solid effort from those contenders down in South Florida.
Yeah. You had the long shot, dangerous ride from the 10 hole, go out fast along with Cyclone Mischief. They went 24 flat, 47-3. It was an honest pace. Forte was tucked down on the inside, kind of getting a pocket trip from 4th and 5th down the backstretch. About halfway down the backstretch, he moved to the 4 path, waited his time, and then leaving the turn, he's tipped out 4 wide. And I was starting to think at first, does he have it? But boy, he started lengthening that stride, a few cracks of the whip from Arad Ortiz Jr., and he really spurted clear like the champion he is. And then inside that final 16th, I love looking, if you watch the replay, look at his ears. He's waiting for Ortiz to give him another command. I'll do whatever you want, but nice stepping stone, 143 flat.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that'll lead him, of course, into, the top of everyone's Derby picture leading up to this first Saturday in May. Still one more prep to go for him, but all systems seemed like he's the king of South Florida right now. And then out west, we had Practical Move returning for Tim Yachtine and making his 3-year-old debut successful in the San Felipe.
At the top of the stretch, Hijazi, Practical Move, cuts the corner now to challenge him in second. 3 back to Fort Bragg and Skinner. Down at the rail, Go Rocket Ride is running on valiantly, but it's Practical Move coming past the 16th pole in command. And Practical Move, another big effort from him under Ramon Vasquez, wins the San Felipe.
Go Rocket Ride and Skinner rounded out the top 3, and Hijazi, who was pretty keyed up early and ended up settling for fourth in there. And, it was good to see, Practical Move return back. We saw, sort of what he was as a 2-year-old in that low South Futurity, had the plan to lay off, and now adds himself to that West Coast picture on the road to the Derby. And Go Rocket Ride and Skinner, two very lightly experienced colts I thought ran well in their own rights. They just were second and third best.
Well, first of all, hats off to Tim Yachtine with Practical Move. We said it on the last podcast. What a fun horse. He's been, he's the natural Yachtine runner. The race, let's face it, it changed the complexion early on when National Treasure was scratched on the morning of the race with a bruised foot. It sounds like it's a minor setback, could resurface shortly. But, the complexion of the race did change there. And Practical Move, his victory in the low South Futurity, we questioned what he beat. I know he beat a good horse yesterday, or rather on Saturday, in Go Rocket Ride. Go Rocket Ride to go from 6 furlongs to 8.5 furlongs in his first attempt, running hard most of the way. As you said, Hijazi made the running, but Go Rocket Ride was there throughout, ran very hard, but Practical Move and his stride, he looks like he's going to want to continue to go on every bit of the mile 8th of the Santa Anita Derby. And, Skinner came in and ran third. Skinner is pace dependent.
Mm-hmm.
We said it the other day. He's a little bit of a plotter. He's going to make that run from behind. He'll have to encounter traffic trouble in a big field, but he is he's talented, but he's dependent on the pace, much like last year's Derby winner in Rich Strike. But the top 4, I wouldn't mind seeing run again, under the right scenarios. Go Rocket Ride, the runner up, I think has a ton of talent. Richard Mandella is very conservative. So for him to throw him to the wolves, so to speak, off of, in just his second start against this type of talent, that was a very nice effort. He was beaten 2.5 lengths by a better horse in Practical Move, but he has every right to continue to progress and improve.
And that's the thing I think and a lot of people forget about, with the road to the Derby and Derby contenders at this stage. Horses are allowed to lose. They're allowed to be defeated. And so I think that's why, you sort of always get the now horses that are taking more attention. But when horses lose and they have legitimate excuses or legitimate questions of why they lost, I think that makes a difference. And Go Rocket Ride, even though he did not win, he has a lot of upside moving forward, and he answered a lot of those questions going into the race of, can he stretch out? What would Richard Mandella do with him, as conservative as he is with a lot of his horses? And he certainly showed that he's a legit contender on the West Coast. But the horse that you mentioned a few minutes ago, Darren, is, Arabian Night. And, how would they stack up against Arabian Night? That's obviously, just, thinking towards the future. Maybe
he looks freaky to me, based off of the 2 starts that we've seen him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a little bit of a freak. And you saw, we had the question mark of the weather out in Southern California. They're spacing his races probably because he doesn't keep the weight on. He came back with the first breeze, 59 and change?
Yeah, so he's
right off the bait.
Yeah.
So
nothing wrong with him. But again, if he is on the different level, then these levels, they're good horses, but maybe they're not quite to his level.
A Practical Move, very professional. I mean, to track down on the inside of the speed, wait for the opening, the command of Ramon Vasquez at the top of the stretch when he just drops his hands, it opened up for him, but the stride and the reach that he showed down the lane was very impressive. Will it be enough to catch a horse like Arabian Night?
Yeah.
We'll see maybe in about, 4 weeks.
Yeah, we'll see, where Arabian Night shows up next. If he would face Practical Move, or they're going to have to wait till their matchup here in Louisville on the first Saturday in May. Now we go across the country to Queens, New York, and Aqueduct, where in the Gotham Stakes, if you were right, you definitely got paid in here. Raise Cane for Ben Colebrook and the team, paid $49 to win the 1 mile Gotham Stakes.
Mel Road has got the lead at the top of the stretch. Up on the outside, it's Eyeing Clover, who's ready to challenge. Eyeing Clover to the outside of Carmel Road, and they are lined up here on the grandstand side. Up on the far outside, General Banker, and from out of it, Raise Kane has taken the lead. It's Raise Kane, who's come from the back of the field, has now passed them all. Raise Kane is well clear inside the final 16th. Raise Kane is going to draw away and win the Gotham. It's Raise Kane over Slip Mahoney, who had a late run as well. Then a photo. Eyeing Clover is there with General Banker in 1 minute 38.09 seconds.
Raise Kane showed up from his Turfway form and made it prove up in New York. Again, as we well documented last week, Darren, it's a 1 mile race. You know, horses are good horses. Not quite maybe Derby contenders at this time, but gives them a stepping stone to maybe prove themselves next time out on the championship series. And it gives Raise Kane every right to either return in the wood or the bluegrass to, try and test the waters on heavier competition.
Yeah, we had the two, How Great Is Nate, drop the rider at the start. And so you had that. I always get nervous when you have that loose horse, especially running up on the outside and with the leaders.
And he was pretty involved within that.
He was involved. We did know, we were confident that there would be a fast pace in here. And there was a fast pace as Carmel Road led the way with, General Banker being in the mix. The race set up nicely for Raise Kane on the outside. I was involved with a wager on Slip Mahoney, who only finished 7.5 lengths back.
Yeah, in second.
But Raise Kane really appreciated the trip. Was nicely positioned and came storming down the track. It was a little bit of a muddy track that was sealed. He relished it. It's a 1-turn mile, the Gotham. Secretariat being the last Derby winner in 1973. That might be safe.
It's yes. Although Raise Kane is a very nice horse.
And it came back fast.
The funny part about this was running into Ben Colebrook at Turfway later that night, and Ben watched this race in an Uber on the way to JFK Airport because he was afraid that he would miss his flight back to Turfway. So he saddled the horse, watched the race in the Uber, and then made his way over to JFK to fly back in for the Battaglia Stakes, which ended our night in the nightcap, and Congruent showed that he could return to form on the Tapeta surface at Turfway, and Sonny Leone came back home to Turfway to win the John Battaglia Memorial Stakes.
Landing, launching up after the lead. Bromley still fighting on. 3 deep down the center of the track. Here comes Congruent, and Congruent makes it 3 across the course. They're inside the final 16th, and up top, it is Congruent who's going to draw away. Congruent was brilliant in the Battaglia, won under wraps, and he won it by 3 in the end. Scooby Quando with a good effort to be second, then Bromley and Moon Landing. Congruent, Sonny Leone in 1:43 flat.
It was a fun homecoming for Sonny, who had a bunch of fans out the winner's circle. His family was there, so it was cool to see Sonny come back to Turfway. And this was another race, Darren, that was very hot, contested pace and seemed to set up perfectly for this horse.
Yeah, new face on the scene, and it was very positive for my Twin Spires account.
Oh, there you go.
With Antonio Sano, bringing this horse in, was racing on turf down in South Florida, looked for the new face. We thought there would be a hot pace in there. There was, with American Speed and Eyes on the King leading the way, 22-4, 45-4, really set it up for, the Grayer Roan horse who just sat in the clear near the back of the pack. And, when the time came for the run, he appreciated the Tapeta surface and paid $35 to win at 16-1. Beat Scooby Quando, who is the local horse that won at first asking the Leonida Stakes.
He won the Turfway preview.
The preview.
Turfway preview back in January. And he sat behind a wall of horses at the top of the stretch, almost in last, and he came rallying for second. So, he's one to watch from up there, but Congruent was definitely the best that night. I think my favorite part about the race wasn't really even, watching Congruent on the track. It was hearing Jimmy McNerney make some Mike Battaglia isms in his call, as Mike's father was, of course, the namesake of this race, who was a longtime GM up at Latonia and Turfway Park, and the Battaglia family has a rich history up at Turfway, and so it was cool to see Jimmy do that. But yeah, Congruent adds himself to the scene. Wouldn't be surprised if he stays up in Florence for the Jeff Ruby Stakes in just a couple of weeks, which turned out to be a heck of a field up there. So Congruent, I'm glad you were right. Glad your Twin Spires account.
That was a nice one.
Yeah.
That was a nice one. A $35 horse makes up for a lot of losers on the way.
Right.
It's not going to be easy for Congruent in the Jeff Ruby Stakes. Todd Pletcher has Major Dude, who of course is a multiple graded stakes winner on the turf, won the Pilgrim and the Kitten's Joy last time out. Major Dude looks like he's going to try the Tapeta surface for the Jeff Ruby Stakes for Spendthrift Farm. Some others are waiting in the wings. I know Wadsworth is up there for Brad Cox. Fantastic again for Wesley Ward. This Jeff Ruby Stakes going to make an impact on this year's Road to the Derby, much like it did last year.
Yeah, Rich Strike came out of the Battaglia, ran fourth, and came back and won the Derby at 81-1. So who knows what can happen from the Jeff Ruby or into the Jeff Ruby Stakes, which will be on March the 25th up at Turfway. And of course, the Road to the Kentucky Oaks Championship Series continued this weekend. Darren, we had the Devona Dale,
Dorth Vader,
big odds, big exactor in that race. That was cool to see for Mike Yates, a homebred for the owner. Red Carpet Ready was disappointing in third, but Dorth Vader now adds her name to the road to the Kentucky Oaks.
Yeah. I don't have much to add other than, I was disappointed in Red Carpet Ready. I thought was in perfect position. It was a horse that I was backing. Faded. The distance looked like it might have caught up with Red Carpet Ready.
And then Sheeta Booty won the Busanda up at Aqueduct.
Yep.
Or the Busher, up at Aqueduct for Chad Brown. He ended up running 1-2 in there. Asset Purchase finished second. And then at Turfway, Botanical won the Cincinnati Trophy, who's a very impressive filly for the Cox team. Not sure where she'll end up, if she'll run back quickly at Turfway or if she'll end up at Keeneland in the Ashland. And then the rerun Santa Isabel, which was canceled and postponed. Faiza didn't earn any points, still under the care of Bob Baffert, won that. And so that's where we stand on the road to the Kentucky Oaks Championship Series.
Yeah, 4 in a row for Faiza. It's a shame she's not eligible for points. It looks like a nice filly.
Yeah, nice filly. Figures didn't come back all that fast, but she's certainly passed the eye test in her recent starts.
Yeah, we're going to have the road to the Kentucky Derby future wager. The Kentucky Derby future wager Pool 5 comes up this coming weekend, March 10th through the 12th. Concurrently, we'll be running the lone Oaks filly road to the Oaks, the Kentucky Oaks future wager.
Easy for us to say.
It is. I've got so much on my mind right now. We're getting Derby brain 8.5 weeks out, but the committee met this morning. We'll be releasing the fields for those both races on Tuesday, and we have full fields of 39. The Derby was not easy.
No, it wasn't.
We had to narrow it down. We had 50 something contenders. We had to get it down to 39 plus the all others, and the same with the Oaks. We were able to find the Oaks. And I can tell you, the Oaks field doesn't come back fast. Like a lot of the speed figures there are, they're not brilliant like some of the Colts.
I mean, just in general.
And that was just in a comment with Faiza, who of course would be a part of the all others. But if I was going to look at the Oaks right now, the fastest figure might be the Michael McCarthy train, Clearly Unhinged.
Yeah, who hasn't returned yet, right?
Who hasn't returned yet. Won her debut sprinting, going 6.5 furlongs on February the 5th. Did breeze, like it's working towards something. But, that horse ran fast. And, of course, you have the champion Wonder Wheel, who will probably needed the last race when she was upset by Dreaming of Snow down in the Sun Coast at Tampa Bay Downs with Julia shining third. So I would expect this Oaks picture to come together, but no real standout there.
No, you got Hoosier Philly, who ran third and her return as a 3-year-old.
A blah third, let's face it, because I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah.
I don't like saying that, but it was a blah.
It sure was. Pretty mischievous, won the race, and she's a very nice filly, but I think, on this road to the Kentucky Oaks, there really isn't one standout. I mean, there quite possibly will be after we run the next, few weeks in this championship series. Of course, the Ashland is a very key race, Santa Anita Oaks. So, nothing right now.
And what does Todd Pletcher do with like a Money's Gold?
Yeah.
Who was so fast, winning by 14.5 in her debut in Monmouth last June, came back and won by 6 1/4 against State Bred. Both of those are sprints, 5 and 6 furlongs. Does he give her an opportunity to go 2 turns? Does he keep her at 1 turn? The difference between the road to the Oaks and the Derby, you don't have to prepare the horse. You're only going 9 furlongs.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see a horse go from 7/8 of a mile into the,
it's a perfect example
into the
of
Oaks.
like what's going on in Florida right now. The Devona Dale was only a mile race, and you heard, Rusty Arnold said pre-race, this filly's pedigree, no problem stretching out, but she's only gone, 6.5, 7 furlongs. And so that's, sprinting distance if you're talking Derby contenders at this stage, but it really isn't that big of a difference
for the
Oaks contenders. So
yep.
That's what's going on the road to the Kentucky Oaks. We'll have all those fields, and we'll go through them on Thursday's episode of Inside the Kentucky Derby. Did you see anything else this weekend that caught your eye anywhere? I really didn't.
No, that was about it for me. Classic Catch re-entered the picture. Hold on. Yes, there was. Hold on. Classic Catch, of course, re-entered the picture for Todd Pletcher, winning a first level 1.8 allowance down at Gulfstream Park on Thursday. Beat Mr. Ripple. Speed figure came back okay. Cairo was an impressive winner of the Patent on the European road to the Derby for Aidan O'Brien. That horse will use that race last Friday as a springboard to the UAE Derby. And that could be interesting because you have a horse like Japan's Perrier in there, maybe the Saudi Derby winner. Derma Kogate?
Yeah,
or not the winner. Finished third, but using that as a stepping stone to the 1 3/16 over at Meydan. You have Doug O'Neill with a couple of horses over at in Dubai, in Tall Boy and Odd G's. They're going to compete in there. It's going to be an interesting UAE Derby that obviously will have an impact where the top 2 finishers could accrue points for consideration in the Derby field.
Absolutely. All that's coming up at the end of the month. And, next weekend, the action heads down to Tampa Bay, and the Tampa Bay Derby. Tapit Trice will return down there at Tampa to face several contenders, but he will be the standout favorite in the Tampa Bay Derby.
Looking forward to that. In fact, if I had to, you've heard me wax poetic about Forte and Arabian Night, I'd probably put Tapit Trice in a third hole if you asked me to. Those 2 would be A's. He might be my B, but to me, it's a clear B. He's more of a B+ type of horse. I'll be interested to see how he progresses.
So if he's a B+ at this stage right now, the Derby is run tomorrow, is the separator Forte and Arabian Night. You got to pick one. Who would you pick?
Arabian Night.
Wow.
Just because I'm always going to, the odds will be better.
Yeah.
The odds will be better.
Yeah.
I think.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's very interesting. I mean, the odds, it's the fixed odds that we see offered at the sports books out in Vegas. It's Forte.
Both of them have been brilliant.
Yeah.
Arabian Night has that freak factor just a little bit, but I love the ears on Forte with the comeback. I mean, that and the reach of his stride That's a tough one. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision today, KK.
We certainly don't. Darren's
Don't
freak
have to make it
factor.
today.
I like that. We can come back with your freaky 5, as we've heard on Inside Churchill Downs for the last year.
Well,
But-
when they appear, we'll tip the hand.
Yeah, if you want to tip the hand to us, we would appreciate a review on all of our podcast platforms. 5 stars for our 4-star performance, and today feels like a 4-star.
I don't know. Don't I get a 5 for congruent?
Yeah, you get
$35 horse.
That was 35. Yeah, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Come on, man.
Come on, I'm tough.
Wins are hard to come by.
Yeah, they are.
It's a
They're
tough
hard.
game.
It is a tough game. And when you get,
That's why we love it.
when you have one that pays 35, that makes up for a lot of the losses. Whenever you can hit withdraw on that Twin Spires account instead of deposit, that's always a good sign.
It was a fun weekend.
Yeah.
It was a fun weekend.
Solid weekend, and we'll have some more to talk about here later this week on Inside the Kentucky Derby. We'll be back Thursday to preview the Tampa Bay Derby and all else that'll be going on this weekend. Thanks for listening to Inside the Kentucky Derby.